Well, Kevin, thank you for helping my project. Could you say a little bit about yourself?
So I'm Kevin Kim, and I'm currently 18 years old, and I'm a senior in high school, waiting for college decisions. I'm interested in business and economics, and specifically behavioral economics is something I'm really interested in with the applications of psychology and human evolution in economics. I think that there's unlimited possibilities in that respect, and my relationship with like space, I've always it's I mean, who wasn't interested in it when they were a kid? And it's something I'm not so into right now, but something if I see like an interesting like article, I'll read it if it comes up on my social media feed or like when I'm reading the news. So yeah.
Yeah, behavioral economics is a really interesting thing. A lot of people talked about how this coronavirus lockdown has really accelerated some trends that have been developing with the idea of um, outsourcing, like shopping, and people doing telemedicine and working from home, and all these trends. I was just wondering, whenever you start going to school to study economics and finance and business and behavioral changes in psychology, uh, how much of what you've experienced kind of gives you some ideas of area to look into?
Mm, I currently I do my own some of my business stuff is in like the secondary markets for collectibles and things like that. And I uh I think there when you said market trends exploding with the pandemic, I think we really saw that area really blow up recently with like sports cards and Pokemon cards. Yeah, I'm sure you've seen those in the news once in a while.
I haven't.
You
Tell me.
really? Yeah, like in November, like this famous YouTuber, he bought like a $500,000 box of Pokemon cards, and ever since then, the market's been going like up on these things. And I think it's really interesting to realize you normally wouldn't think in like a pandemic that people would invest into like alternative collectibles and things like that. But I think it's crazy that people are now that they have so much time at home, they're spending the time to look up other ways to invest, other ways to make money, and things like that. And it's just so interesting to see how people act. Like it doesn't seem rational, but it's just what happens. And I think just looking into behavioral economics and learning about how the the rationalities in our thinking that have existed for thousands of years. I think that's really interesting, and it's definitely it's something worth looking into. Not even on a microeconomic level, but on like if we could apply this macroeconomically with models and things like that, I think it'd be really interesting.
Now, how much of that interest in like collectibles and alternative forms of investment do you think is driven from being more online and having free time to look into them versus monetary policy becoming very, very lax, and like the Federal Reserve just pumping money into the economy, and the stimulus checks, and kind of all these other things, and this perception that maybe money isn't going to be worth as much as it used to in terms of its buying power.
I think it's the stimulus checks, really, because in theory, they're for people to pay their rent, pay for bills, pay like buy food and stuff. But I think we're seeing people make pretty rash purchases, and considering how much of America's very capitalistic, consumerism is a very big part of like the living culture here. So it's honestly it is to be expected, and I think people are just spending that money on whatever they see online that people are saying will make them money with the next the big thing right now is non-fungible tokens, or like collectibles on the blockchain with crypto, um that are related to like cryptocurrencies. And I think it's wild to see people just invent new ways inventing new markets. I think it's something that can only happen in such like a competitive and capitalist world like ours. But people are literally, I feel like people are literally making new markets daily, and it's just crazy to see everything take place. I think we live in a pretty crazy time period right now.
We do. How do you see it ending? I mean, do you think this is sort of the new normal, or do you see it at some point going back to something a little bit more familiar?
I think it's just I think it's like it's not normal right now. That is to keep it short. Like if you saw a GameStop and like those, because people on the internet have the power to take down giant hedge funds now. This is not like a normal occurrence of events for sure, right? So something about people being at home, I think, and watching the world around them, like jobs and things, people being laid off and things like that. I think that really, I think that really encourages people to look at different ways of making money and things like that. I don't think it's sustainable. I think eventually people are going to go back to reality. I think in the end, we're still going to see what economists expect in over a very long term of period of time. And but for now, this is gonna be the normal until people start adjusting properly to the new way of life. I think.
It's kind of interesting to look back 100 years to the 1920s, which was a time of lots of investing in companies, and stock market was doing crazy, and they called it the Roaring Twenties. Um, I mean, now it feels just like the Roaring Twenties again, 100 years later. Of course, that time it ended in a big stock market crash and the Great Depression, and that created conditions for like World War II. But I mean, what are your thoughts? I mean, do you think it's going to end gently, or are we
I
headed
think the
off to?
crazy thing is this happened because a market crash earlier because of COVID-19.
Hmm.
I think that's the crazy part. This isn't something that's been building up. It's something that came out of another crash. But uh, I think it's gonna be just like COVID-19. I think it's not gonna be something that gets it's like overnight. Um, Something that overnight it just disappears. I think it's more gonna be like uh I since it's like a pandemic based, I think it's gonna be like as COVID restrictions lighten up and as people start taking quarantine and things like that more seriously, we're gonna see effects on the market reflect that. But I think we are still going to have some big like actual stock market crashes because the things like the short squeezes I don't think are sustainable for any healthy economic market. I think they're playing a dangerous game right now.
And you're applying to colleges right now. Um, in the fall, when you go to college, do you think you'll be in person or will you be virtual?
Think it's going to be a hybrid for me personally,
Hybrid. Okay.
because we're at the point. I think everybody has realized that at this point we're going to have to go back to reality, and we're going to have to live with these new norms with the masks and everything. But I can see some uh like for example like huge physics lectures and things like that, or like those types of classes I can see those being online, but like recitation sections and lab, um just smaller more niche classes, I can see those still happening in person because a lot of them are discussion based, and discussions like a very important part of these some of these courses. um but the college nightlife is something that truly can't get controlled by anybody, right? So, um, in a country that this is a very difficult situation, especially for a country that emphasizes freedom so much that makes people wear a mask. I think that's like the conflicting argument that's really divided the American people. But we just have to hope that eventually everybody realizes that this isn't going away, and going against preventative measures isn't going to fix that. So uh, it's it's quite the predicament, but I think by the fall, people are still going slowly going to start adjusting to the new normal. Or but up until then, I think we're still going to have people who try to act like nothing's wrong still.
Yeah, it's so random. It's like the opposite of a lottery. Um, I mean, you could get sick and die, or you get sick and get well, or you could be completely unaffected, and there's really no way to predict who's going to be affected in what way.
Yeah, I think the scariest part is it's it's like that, and it's invisible, but it's everywhere around you. You have no idea when you go to the grocery store who might be asymptomatic or whatever, who might have contacted a COVID-19 patient recently. Um, it's something that's blown up so much that everybody is it could be literally anywhere. I think that's insane, especially when my brother started going to school again, like public school. They were getting like emails and stuff whenever a student tested positive, and at first it was one or two kids, but then it just started blowing up, and it's like anybody could have it at this point. So, and which really brings me back to like when we first started with COVID. It was like February. February was when it started hitting US news more, but nobody was panicking until like spring break in March. So the warning signs were there. It's kind of crazy that we've let it get this out of control, I think.
But and I feel like that the reason we started panicking in March was because of those images in the situation in northern Italy. I almost feel like that if it wasn't for that, we probably would not have had the lockdowns like we've had.
Yeah, because even then everybody was saying it's just a flu, right?
Yeah,
But
exactly.
yeah, I think the downplaying of these events really hurt us in the long run, because America does a thing where we try to keep our image as like the strongest country in the world, and we're not going to let some flu variant shut down everything. But some things are more important than keeping your global image as a superpower. In my,
And
um,
it's like
yeah.
so funny, I started these interviews December 17th, 2019, and I was doing
Oh,
them all in person.
yeah.
And it's like it's provided kind of a little snapshot on the effect of COVID-19 over the course of the past year and few months. So
Yeah,
it's
you've seen everything go to ruins, then slowly build back up.
yeah. I even interviewed some people that were, thinking that it was a big conspiracy and the government and 5G, and it's just kind of interesting. But
Yeah, I think it's especially having like first generation immigrant parents. It was really interesting because everybody around me was saying it's no big deal, but my parents who watch like Korean news and stuff like that, they were like, "This is about to get serious real soon." So yeah, I think it hit Houston the hardest whenever right after the rodeo, whenever they said they're canceling everything. Everybody, that's when everybody in here started panicking. Everybody was like, "What is this disease, and why? How did it cancel a rodeo? Like the rodeo is like the most important thing in like all year for us." So it was like, it's crazy. It was crazy how fast things blew up here. It makes and which makes sense why people think it's a conspiracy then, because even if it was like prominent for a while, if it starts becoming relevant within the span of a day, of course you're going to be questioning it. But that's the problem of America for not informing the citizens properly of like what could happen, especially with the global effects and things like that. So I think that's interesting to see how COVID has developed here versus in other places.
yeah, I mean, that's the other thing is a lot of people were saying that, maybe this whole coronavirus thing was in order to influence the election. But I mean, the entire world was experiencing it, and I doubt
Yeah,
that was a big concern I doubt the U.S. elections was really a major concern in, say, India or Peru or wherever.
Yeah, it's pretty crazy. But yeah, but I think it's COVID also had pretty cool things happen. I think a lot of people got really creative during COVID. So uh, it's a net bad, but I think people found the time to really find new hobbies, find new things to do, new hobbies, new passions. And I think for the little guys, if you're like if you're in a financially stable situation, I think it's really challenged people to step out of their comfort zone on a personal level. So is it I think it's really interesting not to just see like the global effects of COVID, but like what COVID has done to individuals as well.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, like even this little project, back in December 17, 2019, one of the reasons why I started this project was because I was working from home for 2 years before that time, and I was just seeing family weeks at a time. And I was like, hey, I should, this project that helped get me out of the house, talking to people in person. And then in March, with the lockdowns, I was forced to start doing it online, but that's kind of opened up to be able to interview people in like Egypt and Pakistan and Chile and all around the world. So it's been kind of interesting.
Yeah, it's actually really funny how that started. Like it was a project back before all the COVID stuff happened, but now it's become a project that really reflects what COVID has done to the world. So I think it's really interesting. You're not just documenting what happened with the moon, with the lunar launch and everything. You're also documenting what's happening in the world around you, because I know for sure the world's going to be very different now than it is next year or 2023 or 2024. So I think it's like looking back on this as like a time capsule when everything's back to normal and COVID's not no longer controlling our lives. I think it's going to be very wild experience for the future generations, because um like even thinking back in 2019, being having to wear a mask every time you go outside, that was a shocking concept, right?
Oh yeah,
So
I mean nobody would do it. I was in London February of last year, and there was a street sign for like one of the like convenience stores talking about wearing a mask and what have you. I'm like, look at these people trying to capitalize on the panic and stuff like that, and then before you know it, we're all wearing masks.
yeah, so I like eventually when the rocket does launch in 2024, is it's going to be really cool. I think it's going to be really cool to see the clips from how the pandemic started and hopefully how the pandemic ends soon. So yeah, this is much more than just moon, I think.
Absolutely, and I hope it's a upward trajectory and not another disaster, a set of disasters.
Yeah.
But talking about the moon, did you know that we were planning to send people to the moon in 2024?
Well, when I saw your Facebook post,
Would you believe that's been true with about 80% of the non-space people, that they don't know that we're actually going to the moon? And I was wondering, why you think that is and what NASA should do different.
I think not many people, most people aren't interested in space right now because of everything going on. But in in the beginning of like the original space race, it was really more of a it was like a sort of a proxy war in space. Like it was a race between the Soviets and the Americans, right? But now we have Elon Musk leading the charge, and that man is a whole he's a whole nother interview's worth of content. But I think this personally, I think he's starting to develop sort of a god complex of sorts, in my opinion. He's a very smart guy. He knows what he's doing, but he's starting to. I feel like he's starting to get drunk with the power he has. Like just look at his Twitter, right? He'll tweet out he'll tweet something out about a random company or a random stock or a random cryptocurrency, and you'll see a moon like you'll see it go up all the way up in like 30 seconds of him posting it. The effect he has on the world is incredible, and but I think recently he hasn't really been talking about space that much. So I think that's why a lot of people aren't really focused on it, because it used to be when we think of space, we think of NASA, but now I think when we think of space, we think of Elon Musk and his endeavors and with SpaceX, right? That, or at least that's what I personally think. But um, if we could really, I think if we could convey the benefits of going to the moon better for normal people, because again, with the previous space race, when we think of going to the moon, we think of like just proving to other countries and proving to the world that America is best. But now, with the technologies we have, it's more than just that. It's more about exploration. It's about benefits, how things in space could benefit us. I think um the eh, how space can benefit us. I think the thing I read about most recently was asteroid mining, being able to take precious metals from asteroids that are really common in space but very rare on Earth. It's a long ways out for sure, but it was really interesting because people were talking about trading on space. One country on Earth company has control. Decide people own in space. So I think the development of like that is going to be interesting, but most people don't realize that space can be profitable, or space is going to things in space are going to lead to developments on Earth scientifically. But yeah, I think if you can really,
Huh. Sorry about that.
yeah, yeah,
My internet connection went bad. You started getting garbled, and then I just got kicked off completely. So I joined with my phone hotspot.
okay.
So that's kind of scary going into this week. But you were talking about Elon Musk.
Yeah, Elon Musk. I think when people think of space now, that's who people think of. And if he really speaks about it more publicly and emphasizes the benefits of going to the moon, I think it's going to. I think that would be the greatest like influencer of the public into having their eyes more on space exploration. Uh, they People need a reason to support something before they actually do. So I think that's what we're waiting for.
I
Or
was wondering if you've been keeping track of what SpaceX and Elon Musk is doing down in Boca Chica, down there in Brownsville, Texas.
oh no, I've just been seeing the rocket testing right in Florida. Fairly recently, we had one in 2021, I think, and I don't know what he's doing down in Brownsville. I do know about Tesla in Austin, but not in Brownsville.
Yeah, so down there, he's trying to build something he calls a Starship, and it's like a spacecraft that's capable of lifting 100 people into orbit, um, that could be 100% reusable, and so it would be actually the cheapest spacecraft to operate that's ever been built because they don't have to rebuild it for each flight.
Hmm.
And he's has been building like a factory down there that's able to produce essentially one of these about a month. But what he plans to do, once he gets the design proven out, is have a factory that could produce two of them a week, and each one would be capable of doing 3 launches a day. So if you could imagine, at that point, you could have literally hundreds of launches per day. And
Yeah,
the
yeah, yeah. I heard about that actually. Yeah, he was trying to commercialize spaceflight or something. I think that's how the news outlets phrased it. And it does have potential. There's a very rich people in the world, and going to space would be probably one of the biggest rich people accomplishments to do with your money. And if you can really make this efficient and have multiple launches a day, like hundreds of launches a day, people would definitely be interested. I think it's in human nature to want to go beyond and having the opportunity to even experience like orbit or weightlessness for a few seconds, without going through years of astronaut training, um, would definitely be like a revolutionary experience in tourism or whatever. Tourism, um, I don't know how affordable it would be for him, but for him, like money isn't an issue. So we'll see.
But it's kind of interesting. What's the economic value, or what's the reason to go to a desert? That might be hard to justify too, right? But
Yeah,
people go to Las Vegas all the time, and they see that as an in unto itself. So maybe it's just a matter of building a hotel on the moon and then creating a way to go there, and then that in itself would be justification enough.
yeah, or even like, why do people go to national parks? Because they want to see something wonderful that nature has created or the universe has created. Same with space. Like it's a sightseeing thing too. It's like not many people get to see it. I would argue it's definitely beautiful, and it's 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 a very different environment than the one you're used to living in your daily life. So I think that's something to take into consideration as well.
Yeah, for sure. But I guess you're saying that people need to know why we're going back and what the reason is. What are some reasons that would justify it in your mind? Like, what would you want us to get out of it?
I'm personally, I'm really interested in asteroid mining in particular because, as we know, we don't have many years left of environmental sustainability on Earth, and that's also a reason why we're going to space, right? And mining just completely destroys ecosystems because you're literally stripping the land off the surface of the Earth. So being able to get rare earth minerals that are super costly to get on the surface of Earth, and being able to outsource that to the asteroid belt, where like if you if you mess up an asteroid, it's not really hurting anything. There's nothing living there, and it doesn't really affect our survival on the planet. So being able to really take mining, which is super harmful on Earth, to space where it's relatively harmless, I think that would really help with conservation efforts. Also, um, alternative energy sources. When you go to space, you don't have fossil fuels or anything like that for prolonged periods of time. So it really makes people think creatively on how they're going to get energy from nuclear fuel cells to solar panels, and um, and the having the people having the scientists figure out solutions for space also helps us make more efficient solutions for Earth. So I think it would really help with the advancement of alternative energy sources, and how to collect and the technology and innovation in that area. So those are some reasons I can name off the top of my head. But if you want to continue.
Yeah, no, those sound good. And I think there's also kind of like a philosophical point. Um, for some people, they see the future of humanity as being eventually growing beyond the Earth and having like orbital space facilities and facilities on the moon and on Mars and on the moons of Jupiter and the moons of Saturn, and these big free floating facilities. And other people really have trouble envisioning that for the future of humanity. They see humanity mainly just staying on the Earth. um, so, if your view on the future of humanity is that first one, then the moon's kind of like just a logical step. It's like
Yeah.
it's reasoning enough. But if you're in that second camp, I'm not sure there's really any reason you could justify that would be strong enough to say that's a good use of resources.
Mhm. Yeah, I think the humanity's fascination on the moon is very interesting too. Like every culture worships the moon in some way, basically. If you look at every ancient culture, they always have some sort of deity for the moon. I mean, it is just up there. When you look at the night sky, you see a big white circle. But the moon has been something captivating humanity ever since civilization has begun. So and it's also helped people. People have planned harvests around the moon. People have learned about like tides from the moon, things like that. So yeah, the moon has just been something that humanity has always been interested in, and it'd be a, I think it'd be really for all of humanity. I think it'd be a really big step to just be able to have people living on the moon. Um, yeah, and again, we also have that trope, the man on the moon. Like, we'll actually have men on the moon living, and I think it'll be really crazy if like people even 100 years ago learning about this, they'll probably be going insane right now. Or yeah, or even people back from the original moon launch when they hear that we're making reusable spaceships, they're going to be like, "Wow, we never even imagined this." The world's developing at such a fast pace, but I don't think people take enough time to reflect upon it because we're also moving at the same pace.
Yeah, and I think whenever you're able to get a telescope out and look at the moon and actually see the evidence of human activity on the moon, that's going to really have a big effect on people's perceptions.
Yeah. People. Yeah. People. I feel like people really don't realize, especially since the moon doesn't have like a real atmosphere or anything. Like everything we do on the moon, if we take a picture of the moon before the Apollo landing and now, they're probably vastly different on the surface. If you really take a telescope and look at it. So I think that's insane that we've already left permanent imprints on the moon. Like there's objects, obviously, but the fact that like we have visual differences, the moon back from the moon back then and the moon now, it just really shows how far humanity has come.
And um, if it was, so you mentioned asteroid mining, but what do you think about mining of the moon? Do you feel like that's something worthwhile, or do you put that in a separate category than asteroid mining?
Uh, I mean, obviously, when we mine on the moon, we're not hurting living life, and I've heard some sort of theories about like using the moon either to bring back water, clean water from the moon to Earth, or using the moon as sort of a space depot for with the ice there for the astronauts and such to refuel up on water, which is a very precious commodity in space from the moon. But I'm not particularly familiar with like the minerals, like expensive minerals on the moon. I feel like if there was stuff that was worthwhile, out of people would have been rushing the moon mission a lot sooner. But I don't know. Well, how do you? I feel like there's something that feels inherently wrong with like defacing the surface of the moon that we look at every day, every night, right? But in reality, you're not really hurting anything, right? But it just doesn't feel right to me to deface something that's been a very big part of everything for so long.
What about doing it on the far side of the moon that always faces away from Earth?
I'm fine with that personally, but I feel like we should somehow preserve the surface of the moon that's really been an important part of everybody's cultures for so long.
If it was safe and affordable, would you go into space?
I think I would. I enjoy like camping and things like that, going out in the wilderness, and space is like, well, the last frontier, right? So yeah, it'd be. I feel like it'd also be almost a humbling experience to see how small Earth is compared to eh, the universe, because you get caught up feeling like in your everyday life and everything around you, but in the grand scheme of things, you're a very insignificant part of the universe as a whole. But yeah, it'd be a really humbling, but also like a really exciting experience, I think. And if it wasn't like incredibly expensive, I would probably be really interested in going even in orbit or to the moon. Hopefully, that'd be really cool. Jumping around.
Now there's a project underway right now called Inspiration 4. This The CEO of Shift 4 Payments has bought a SpaceX Dragon ride into space later this year for 4 people.
Mhm,
Himself, a person that works for St. Jude's, and a person that donates to St. Jude's in February. So today's the last day of February, and gets
mhm.
randomly selected. So we'll find out tomorrow who it is. And then somebody that creates a video about using their payment system for something inspirational. Um, I mean, is that something that you would consider participating in or would have interest of in?
So, they're getting sent to space once it's ready.
Yes, later this year on a SpaceX Dragon flight.
Oh, I see. Oh, I mean, I love service. I've been trying to plan. I've been running some charity events on the side, and it's really cool to see like someone getting sent to space for being kind enough to um, help with cancer research. It'd definitely be something I'd be interested in, or even putting my own money into. So
Yeah, you
it's
can
great to what
you can actually sign up for it for free, or like the minimum donation amount's like $10. But I definitely recommend checking it out today. It's inspiration4.com.
inspiration for. Let me put that in my
Yeah,
Google. Yeah, but it's really cool to see people using something like space exploration to do good for the people around them. Um, I think uh, as long as we keep kindness as part of our mission, whenever we do anything, I think a lot of things are go much better. Um, I'm taking a look at it right now. Donating to St. Jude to go to space sounds like a great deal to me, right?
yeah, exactly. And now the thing is, they had hoped to raise $100 million. I think currently they're at like 10 million something. So
They have a
quite
few
a
years.
well. I
I
mean
mean,
the
a few months now, but like for the moon, they have a few years.
well, I mean, but the drawing for the person that gets that charity seat is actually tomorrow.
Oh,
So
really?
it's like what would encourage people? I mean, if 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 getting a trip to space doesn't encourage you to give, um,
Yeah.
why do you give when you no longer have the opportunity to get the trip to space? How does that work? I mean, that's the part that I don't.
I'm sure that they'll figure out new opportunities or new prizes to give out. Um, People are creative. I think they'll figure it out. But uh, there's the moon. There's future flights because I'm sure they're gonna make like things like the Dragon flight. They're gonna have to test that multiple times. So I just if but I guess it does. I think people do get scared because the last time they did something like this with the space shuttle program, it didn't end up as well as people would have liked.
You're talking about the Challenger and the
Yeah,
teacher
the
in space.
Challenger. Yeah. So I think there is a general fear of going into space. Like, I mean, it's going into space, right? So uh, I think there's like a fear of people. I mean, I would kind of be scared for a new space vehicle, but hopefully all goes well. And I feel like if this one goes well, the next one's going to be more successful, right?
Absolutely. And I wonder how much longer there is, because they used to have a countdown clock on on here that would tell you how many more days you had to cruise selection, but I don't see that countdown clock on here anymore. Um, that is really curious.
Hmm.
Hmm, I'll, yeah, because it says you have to give um, by February 28th at 11:59 Eastern time. So there's actually still um, about what 4 hours left
Yeah, 4 hours.
to actually participate in the donation thing. So we'll see.
Yeah, I'm sure they'll take like a week or two to release like the winner, but
I
uh,
my understanding they should tell us tomorrow.
I mean, yeah, but like these promotional things, I feel like sometimes they get delayed and stuff.
Yeah. Well, we'll see. We'll see. Uh, you know, uh, yeah. If either you or I get selected, we should make sure the other person knows.
Yeah, yeah, I'm definitely looking at how to donate and stuff. But yeah, that really the thought of normal people going to space is just shocking, right? Like how many people on the planet, like probably less than like 1,000 can, or even 500 could say they've ever been in orbit or in space. But taking that opportunity and giving it to people like you and me, I think that's a huge step if you really think about it compared to where we were at just even 50 years 40 years back. So yeah, it's I bottom line is the world's changing really fast and it's hard to keep up, but everything seems to be going well for now, right?
Yeah, exactly. And you know that one person. So Jared is going, of course, but the other person is Haley is was diagnosed with cancer back in when she was 10 years old, and she was treated by St. Jude's, and now she's a physician assistant working with leukemia lymphoma patients.
Oh,
And
that's really cool.
I think the fact that she's getting to go is really excited a lot of other people who are going through those same challenges.
Yeah, beating cancer wasn't enough for her, so she wanted to completely eradicate it. Yeah,
Yeah,
that's a really cool story. Yeah.
I mean, I'm actually just happy knowing that she gets to go. That
Yeah,
makes me happy.
those are like our everyday heroes that don't get like famous, but they're doing lots of good in the world. Uh
Absolutely.
yeah.
Well, Kevin, I really appreciate your time. I know we talked about a lot of things, but is there something that you wanted to talk about that we didn't get to?
I think I'm good for now.
Well, I really appreciate you participating in my project, and I hope you have a good rest of your day. And um, good luck if you sign up for the opportunity, the Inspiration 4.
Yeah, I'm sure my chances are very slim, but
Well,
it's a good cause.
you could take whatever money you donate, divide it by 10 million. That's your chances.
Yeah.
uh,
Okay.
uh,
Thank you for the opportunity. It was great catching up with you.
Same here. Okay, bye bye.
Bye.